And specifically, we're talking about the third book, Onyx Storm. It just hit shelves January 21st, 2025.
Right.
And the anticipation, I mean, it's been huge. Fans seem to have some really strong feelings,
Oh,
both good and, well, maybe less good.
yeah. It's been quite divided, hasn't it? And our mission today for this deep dive is really to unpack why. Why is Onyx Storm being called both spellbinding and polarizing?
Exactly.
We're using a creative summary and review as our guide here. We'll try to distill its core bits, look at those reader reactions you mentioned, and ultimately help you figure out if this book is actually for you.
Think of it as a shortcut, right? Your way to get the critical points without wading through tons of reviews.
Precisely.
Okay, so let's set the scene. Onyx Storm picks up like immediately after Iron Flame's ending.
Yeah, no time wasted there.
We're thrown straight into this tense alliance. It's Navarre and Poromiel, and they're facing off against Venin.
The bad guys, essentially.
Yeah.
Dark magic users, parasitic, draining the land. Classic fantasy enemies, but with a twist.
Right. And at the center, of course, is Violet Sorrengail, our amazing, maybe slightly unconventional dragon rider.
She's got a lot on her plate.
She really does. Like a twofold mission. First, find this mysterious seventh breed of dragons.
Which sounds intriguing.
And second, find a cure for Xaden Riorsan. Because, and this is a big spoiler if you're not caught up, he's actually become one of the Venin himself.
Which is a huge complication, obviously. That whole setup, it's designed for an epic quest, isn't it?
Totally.
The story, from what we understand, takes Violet and the others on these island quests, dealing with alliances that are, shaky at best.
Fractured, yeah.
And it all leads up to this massive cliffhanger, just bam! Violet apparently wakes up, finds out she's married to Xaden, who's just vanished.
And she has no memory of it.
Exactly, no memory. It's,
yeah.
Wow, a very high-stakes, twisty setup.
It definitely keeps you guessing.
Yeah.
So, okay, let's talk about the good stuff first. The rave reviews. World building is a huge one, right?
Absolutely huge. Fans seem to love the expansion. New islands, different cultures showing up, more dragon lore.
And those new Irid dragons. People seem fascinated. What makes this expansion feel epic, do you think, rather than just more?
Well, I think it's the integration. It's not just, here's a new island. It's how these new elements, like the Irid Dragons, change the game. They introduce new magic, new possibilities. It makes the world feel deeper, more organic.
It's genuinely growing.
Exactly. It feels lived in.
Right.
And connected to that, you have the emotional core, the romance.
Ah, yes. Violet and Xaden.
That relationship, readers describe it as having this raw chemistry, real passion. They call it heart-wrenching, captivating, a story of love and resilience.
Yeah, you see that a lot. It's clearly a massive draw for the Romantasy fans.
Definitely. That blend of high-stakes fantasy and intense romance.
And I have to say, Yarros seems to balance that intensity with a really cinematic feel. The pacing, the style.
You think so?
Yeah, reviewers often mention how she mixes these, adrenaline-pumping battles with more lyrical writing. It pulls you in. Makes it feel like watching a movie sometimes.
That's a great point. The visual storytelling is strong. But that brings us to the other side of the coin, doesn't it? The criticisms.
Right. Where the storm gathers, so to speak.
So some readers felt there was plot overload, pacing issues. Now, complex fantasy often has multiple plot lines, but where did Onyx Storm maybe push it too far for some?
Well, the feedback seems to suggest the momentum stalled, particularly in the middle section.
Yeah, the dreaded mid-book slump.
Yeah, and apparently there were maybe too many exposition-heavy scenes instead of action or plot progression. Some readers felt it dragged.
Okay, so that connects to another point, the cliffhanger and filler concerns.
Exactly. People felt it slowed down and then just stopped abruptly. Some even used the word filler, like parts just overstayed their welcome.
Trying to juggle too many balls, perhaps, leading to some getting dropped or just feeling unnecessary.
Could be. It's tough to balance multiple major arcs. And then there's the romance itself.
The romance repetition. Yeah, I saw that mentioned. While it's passionate, that back and forth, the push-pull between Violet and Xaden.
It gets cyclical.
That's the word some readers use, cyclical. Like, how long can that specific dynamic sustain itself before it feels a bit stuck?
Right. You want development, not just the same argument or tension rehashed. And maybe tied into the pacing and plot overload is the lore.
The dense lore.
Yeah. Apparently, jumping into Onyx Storm without a recent reread of the first two books, it left a lot of people feeling lost.
Like really lost.
Yeah. Lost in a sea of lore was a phrase used. It suggests the complexity, while maybe impressive, becomes a barrier if you're not completely immersed or haven't done your homework, so to speak.
So you almost need, like, study guides or refreshers.
People are joking about needing chapter schools on memory refreshes. It highlights that the density might be a bit much for casual readers jumping back in.
Okay, that's a significant hurdle. It demands real commitment from the reader.
Definitely. And look, these aren't just abstract points. We've got some direct reader quotes that really capture this mix. Someone just said, "It was popcorn."
Popcorn. Quick, easy, maybe not super satisfying.
Kind of implies that, yeah. Then another. "Unfortunately, the second half became a different, much less interesting book." Ouch.
That points right back to that pacing issue, the mid-book slump.
And this one really hits the emotional aspect.
Yeah.
The one time something remotely good happens, something horrible happens immediately after.
Wow. That sounds exhausting for the reader. A real emotional roller coaster, but
Right.
maybe not always in a fun way.
Right. So, okay. Let's try and synthesize this. What's the final verdict here? Who is this book really for?
Well, I think the verdict has to be that it is both spellbinding and polarizing. No getting around that. It absolutely delivers the things fans of the series love. That sweeping fantasy feel, the charged romance, the big world reveals.
The stuff Fourth Wing and Iron Flame readers signed up for.
Exactly, but it's also sprawling. It meanders sometimes, according to readers, and it definitely leaves more questions than answers. It feels more like a bridge than a destination.
So the ideal reader. Probably someone who loves getting lost in that immersive romantasy world. Someone who's okay juggling multiple storylines, maybe even enjoys that complexity.
And crucially, someone who isn't put off by a massive cliffhanger. You have to be in it for the long haul.
Right. But who might struggle with it?
Well, a word of caution maybe for readers who prefer things a bit tighter, neater pacing, a more self-contained story, a satisfying conclusion. This might not deliver that.
It sounds like it demands patience.
Patience and emotional investment, definitely. And if you want things wrapped up nicely at the end of a book, you might find this one, well, frustratingly open-ended.
Okay, that's clear. So, bottom line, if you are planning to dive into Onyx Storm,
Do your homework.
yeah, essential reader tip, go back and reread Fourth Wing and Iron Flame, or at least find a good summary recap. Seriously, fans are saying it's pretty much essential to really get what's going on.
You'll avoid feeling lost in that sea of lore we talked about.
Definitely worth the effort. So just to recap quickly, Onyx Storm, it's vivid, it's passionate, lots of magic, romance, mythology.
But also sprawling, demanding, can feel slow in parts.
It's going to be exhilarating for readers who love that epic scale, that emotional intensity, and don't mind waiting for answers after a cliffhanger.
But for others, especially if you want tighter pacing or a clear ending, it might feel like a storm that doesn't quite hit the way you expected.
Which leaves us with something to think about for you, the listener. A final provocative thought, maybe?
Go on.
When a series asks for this much emotional investment, builds this huge world, and then ends a book on such a massive cliffhanger, does that feel satisfying? Or does it just feel like the burden of finding resolution is pushed onto the next book?
It's a good question.
What really stands out to you about that kind of storytelling? How much are you willing to carry over unresolved from one installment to the next? Something to mull over.